Check, you know what's weird about Wemby? He's like the only person in San Antonio can't gain weight.
I will give you credit for that one, Chuckster.
Who you talking about, Chuck? Hey, man, I don't understand why this the only skinny person in San Antonio.
So I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, but Charles Barkley is absolutely a national treasure. I am just saying. Look, at the end of the day, when I think of Charles Barkley, if I were to compare him to anybody who's currently playing in the National Football League, the other national treasure that we have, folks, is Jameis Winston. But on today's NBA Rundown, we are not going to talk National Football League football. We are actually going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs, who, by the way, let's just be clear, are having a very good season to this point. Yeah, I know the Spurs are 10-9 and are currently in the 10th spot in the Western Conference. Look, they're not having as good a season as Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors currently are, but this is a really good basketball team, and I think a lot of teams in the NBA should be afraid of this San Antonio Spurs team. We are going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs on the NBA Rundown. I'm going to play a little bit more from that Charles Barkley clip as well for you in just a little bit. Welcome. If you are new to the NBA Rundown, please go ahead and subscribe, and of course like this video. Also check us out on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, or wherever the hell you happen to get your podcasts from. Now, I am not delusional when it comes to this San Antonio Spurs team at this point. They are certainly playing really good basketball, and the rookie addition of Stephon Castle has certainly also proved to be a good pickup for the San Antonio Spurs team. We know that Chris Paul has also made a significant difference on this team, at least from a point guard perspective. Look, you're not going to expect Chris Paul to play 35 minutes a game, but he is currently averaging over 8 assists a game, and that's exactly what you're looking for from Chris Paul, somebody on the court that can actually be a general. Now, a lot of times when people are talking about this year's San Antonio Spurs team, they often overlook, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Harrison Barnes. That's right. You remember Harrison Barnes back early in his career with the Golden State Warriors? Then he spent all of that time with the Dallas Mavericks after that, and then went on to the Sacramento Kings, who are really not having a good year at this point. So Harrison Barnes brings another level of senior leadership to this particular team. He's not at that stage of his career where he's necessarily going to light it up every night, but in November, since November 19th, Harrison Barnes has scored 20 points against the Thunder, 25 against the Jazz, 22 against his former team in the Warriors, had an off night in Utah, and then 19 against the Lakers in the San Antonio Spurs loss at home. So when I look at this overall makeup of this particular San Antonio Spurs team, it is actually a pretty solid outfit. Now, Devin Vassell has missed a lot of games so far, and Sochan has as well. He's actually only played in 7 games to this point. I always thought that Champagne was a good basketball player and continues to prove it. So while I don't think, and I'm not going to be myopic with any of you out there about the San Antonio Spurs team and try to claim that the San Antonio Spurs team is going to go deep into the playoffs this year, that's not where they're at this point. That being said, they are playing really good basketball. I'm back with some final thoughts, but I'm going to play the entire clip for you from the folks over at TNT.
Check, you know what's weird about Wemby? He's like the only person in San Antonio can't gain weight.
I will give you credit for that one, Chuckster.
Who you talking about, Chuck? Hey, man, I don't understand why this the only skinny person in San Antonio.
Seriously, national treasure is that Charles Barkley. Now, look, the San Antonio Spurs team has had a bit of a mash unit. I mean, Trey Jones has also only played in 7 games to this point. So you're missing Devin Vassell, you're missing Trey Jones. Sochan's only played in 7 games. Those are some pretty key ingredients to the youth movement that's on this San Antonio Spurs team. So when I look at this overall team and you think about the NBA as a whole, the San Antonio Spurs certainly on any given night can actually beat you. And I think that's the one thing that you need to sort of understand about the NBA this year as it relates to the San Antonio Spurs team. Now, the matchups are not always going to play in their favor. So there's going to be a significant amount of games that they do lose this year just simply because they don't have enough front court talent to deal with other teams. Yes, we know that Wemby's been playing great. And yes, Wemby is averaging 3.6 blocks a game, pretty much what he did last year as well. But beyond Wemby, they don't have a lot of big bodies there at this point that are really going to help them out. I mean, case in point, the Dallas Mavericks, a team in which they have Daniel Gafford, they have Lively, they have PJ Washington. It's not a good matchup, if you will, for the San Antonio Spurs, which is why they've actually lost 2 games to the Dallas Mavericks. That doesn't mean the Spurs can't actually beat a different style team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who they've actually beaten this year. They beat them on November 19th. So look, at the end of the day, I think the Spurs can beat anybody in the NBA with the exception of a few teams where the matchups just don't play in their favor. Now, obviously, injuries certainly play a big part in this, but would I be surprised to see the San Antonio Spurs at the very least make the play-in this year? I would not be surprised at all. And in fact, I think this is a vastly improving team. It is a well-coached team. I know Popovich isn't there, but the rest of the coaching staff has certainly done a good job, and you can see the discipline on the court. And then finally, once again, Chris Paul does make a difference. Look, I know Chris Paul can be a bit of an annoying basketball player to his teammates. I'm just sort of repeating what's been leaked in the past. That being said, I think he's the perfect ingredient for this San Antonio Spurs team, at least this year. All right. That is it. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about this year's San Antonio Spurs. Please go ahead and drop your comments in for the NBA Rundown. I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.
This is Phoenix.